Good evening, boys and girls. I am Pieguyrulz, and welcome back to Nick or Treat. Tonight we have a Hey Arnold episode, so you know it's definitely gonna be a treat. Although, I suppose it's also technically a Nick. Should this be Nick and Treat? Well, that doesn't sound quite as catchy. Anyway, the episode is called Arnold's Halloween. You know, for a show that was as amazing as Hey Arnold, you think they would have put at least a little bit more effort into these episode titles. Arnold accidentally causes mass hysteria while trying to prank the boarders. This is a great episode and a wonderful story about how a small prank can go horribly, horribly wrong. It's a lesson in mob mentality and not believing everything you hear and all that sort of good stuff. It's also a brilliant parody. I'm sure there's actually some people out there that don't know, but this episode is a parody of real-life events that happened way back in the early 1900s. I guess I'll give a little backstory on it, as it's crucial to understanding just how awesome this episode is. So back before television was the main entertainment industry, families would gather around the radio for news and stories and all sorts of other stuff. For Halloween in 1937, the Columbia Broadcasting System, CBS as you and I know it today, decided to air a reading of an adaptation of H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds by Orson Welles. And trust me, it's really easy to confuse those two. Although there was a warning at the beginning of the broadcast and another one later into it that yes, this is indeed fictional, many people didn't hear that because they were listening to another radio program at the time and only switched over to catch part of War of the Worlds. The thing that made people really believe that this alien invasion actually happened is the fact that the way the thing was framed was like a bunch of news reports. And because there were no advertisements in the middle of this thing, people legitimately thought this was a breaking report about aliens coming down. It might seem ridiculous to think that anyone actually fell for this, but since the radio was used for both news and fiction, and this was at a time when a lot of people weren't too familiar with mass media and the way it worked, it's not actually that surprising that something like this could happen. Talk about one crazy mischief night. Anyway, back to Hey Arnold. What I really like about this episode is that you don't need to know that it's a parody of real-life events to get any part of the story. All of the characters act within character. There are no moments where you're left scratching your head wondering what they're referencing or anything. This episode works on its own as a straight story, though it does become even more amusing once you realize the truth behind it. This is how you do parody correctly. Sure, there's a few other ways, but this is one of my favorites. When you do something that's so clever and just fits so well with the characters and the situation that a lot of people won't even realize it is a parody. Which in and of itself is like a reference to War of the Worlds. The fact that myself as a kid didn't know that this was a reference to real life events is like the people actually not realizing that that was a fictional broadcast. And aside from the whole plot being a reference to it, there's of course little references, like the fact that the location they all end up going is named Wells Ridge, like H.G. Wells or Orson Welles. And speaking of Orson Welles, the episode features a newscaster with his voice. Maurice LaMarche, the guy who plays the brain, which is also a reference to Orson Welles, is in this episode. I mean, technically he's in a lot of episodes of Hey Arnold because he plays Big Bob, but he is actually here doing an impression of Orson Welles, and it fits so perfectly. There's other awesome little things about this episode too, like the fact that Monkey Man gets a cameo, or the fact that Gerald's dad is dressed as Fred Flintstone at the Halloween party. I like that the episode makes this whole plot feel kind of believable, even if it is a little bit of a stretch that all the people would fall for this. The episode sets up quite nicely that a bunch of people are obsessed with this one guy's alien television show, meaning that people are kind of expecting aliens, and when you're expecting something to happen, you're a lot more susceptible to a prank like this. Though I would have never pegged Big Bob for one to believe in aliens. But hey, they made it fit. It's also kind of refreshing to see Arnold make a mistake. He screws up here, even though it is just a little prank. He is the reason why his friends get chased down and almost killed. There are some funny one-liners in the episode from Big Bob and Arnold's grandpa, but much like the Christmas episode, this episode is big on atmosphere and telling a really interesting story that builds to a great climax. And I kinda like how Arnold didn't tell his friends that he was planning this prank. He sets them up as these unwitting pawns, which makes Arnold feel a little less perfect and a little bit more like a kid. Oh, and this episode doesn't actually go for the herder aliens are real after all ending. It looks like they're gonna do that, but nope, they just show a pumpkin superimposed on the water tower for some reason. It's a little bit awkward, but it's definitely not as bad as had there actually been aliens, or, I don't know, Arnold's grandma being beamed up or something stupid. Though unfortunately, Hey Arnold as a whole has a few of these stupid supernatural endings. Anyway, there's only one small complaint I have about this otherwise amazing episode. The inclusion of Principal Warts. He's seen buying chocolates to try and give to the aliens, and wants to offer up kids as collateral. I don't remember him much from the series, and I don't think he was ever particularly a nice guy, but this seems a little bit too much, and seems to come out of nowhere. His inclusion in this episode is just a little bit awkward, and it's supposed to be funny, but it's really just not. But that's just a small detail in an otherwise amazing episode. I highly suggest you watch this, especially if you've never seen it or didn't know about the whole War of the Worlds actual real-life event happening when you last saw it. It may not be as moving as Arnold's Christmas, but it's really good stuff. Pieguyrulz, out.